Hello festival goers and welcome to Q's Couch Conversations. This is our very first episode and we are kicking it off in style. We have a very special guest today, Yvette Hardie. Yvette, thank you so much for availing yourself. I can imagine you're so busy. How are you feeling today on day 6 of NAF 18?
Chilly, but very happy.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's take it back to the beginning. Who are you? Who is Yvette? How did you get started in this particular field and career path?
Well, I've always loved theatre from the very, very earliest age. Apparently, when I was 4, I was telling my father that I wanted to be an actress and a writer when I grew up.
All right.
And so that thing has always been there, but it was there largely because I had parents and a family and a community that also loved the arts. So that took me to the arts. So as a kid, I was going to see the ballet or musicals or theatre productions, and I did drama, pretty much my whole life. And so I really had opportunities to engage with the arts, and it made a tremendous difference to my being.
Yeah.
And I was very motivated to be an actress. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a great actress. But I went to UCT, I studied theatre, I became a professional actress, I moved to Joburg, and one of the first jobs that I had was working for PACT in taking productions to schools.
Okay.
So it was kind of theatre for young audiences, although I didn't see it like that at the time. I just saw it as like a step in the journey of becoming a great actress,
Yeah.
And then I started to get into directing, which I really loved because I suddenly realized that it gave me a lot more control of the creative process than I had as an actress a lot of the time. And then I fell into teaching completely by accident, but that also became something I really loved because I found that seeing the transformation that the arts can give young people was incredibly exciting for me. And so I got really inspired by teaching. And initially I was just doing part-time teaching and it was very sort of, ad hoc. But gradually the teaching just grew and became something that I really invested a lot of time in. And I became the head of department at the National School of the Arts. And then after a time of being there, I decided I wanted to go back into full-time professional theatre. And when I did that, I was going back into being more of a director and a producer than an actress at that stage.
All right.
But the big producing job that I got at that point in my life was for an international theatre production, which Hugh Masekela did the music for, with some fantastic actors in the company. Andrew Buckland was one, Temi Machali, and Nick Borain and various others. And it was a very big international tour. So we were taking it to places that had experienced conflict because the piece was about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I was meeting all sorts of fascinating people in these different countries. And they all had something in the end, it turned out, to do with Assetege, this organization that I hadn't heard about. But I started to kind of connect some dots. And so around 2006, I was introduced then to this international organization which focuses on theatre for children and young people. So basically my whole life has been very much engaged with theatre, but with this kind of trajectory which was taking me closer and closer towards theatre for young audiences and also theatre within an international sphere.
All right. Now tell us, why is theatre for children so important to you? Why that group of young people? What does that mean for you?
Because I really believe that if you don't have access to the arts at the earliest possible age, it becomes very difficult to access later. So it's been proven in all kinds of studies that you really need to engage with the arts. And in fact, the arts are the most natural way of being for children.
Exactly.
So if you think about what a child does, when a child is playing, what are they doing? They're playing games, the kind of games you play in the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
They're using rhyme, they're using music, they're using dance, they're using rhythm, they're using, and then they're acting. They are animating objects. They're turning stones into cars. They're turning, a doll into a baby or whatever it is. They're animating the world around them. They're creating little scenarios. They're acting out what they see in the adult world or what they kind of are moving into and dealing with problems through using the arts. Yeah. Then we put them into school and we take all of that way of learning away from them. And we say, you now have to work in this incredibly unnatural way, which is not using the whole human being, which is not engaging all the senses, which is what play does and what the arts do. Yeah. So for me, the arts are actually central to our development as human beings, and they are central to our capacity to learn. So for children to have exposure to the arts is so important. And so, you know, that's really become my mission. It's in a country like ours where we have such huge disparities in terms of access. Every child deserves the same right to have access to the arts, regardless of whether they are in a tiny little village somewhere, you know, without a big theatre, or whether they are in a township somewhere. Wherever they happen to be in this country, they should have access to the arts.
All right, now tell us about your trip to Grahamstown, Makhanda now, and your time at festival in 2018. What's the work that has gone into coming to festival this year, and what can children, young directors, people who just love theatre expect from Assetej?
So the way Assetej approaches the festival is that, well, firstly, maybe I need to say that Assetej is it's an international network of artists and theatre companies all across the world who are making work for young audiences. And that when I say young audiences, I mean 0 to 19.
Okay.
So literally from babies, from newly born babies, right the way through to young adult. And obviously those audiences have very different and diverse needs. So it's a theatre that really takes its audience into consideration. Within South Africa, Assetej South Africa is the national network of everyone who's making work for that audience, or those audiences. And so we have artists, individual artists, we have companies, we have organizations, we have universities, etc., who are all members of Assetej. So what Assetej does at the festival is it creates a kind of a marketing platform for these productions. It provides support. In some instances, we have helped to mentor the artist in the making of the production. They've been through some sort of development process with us, or a mentorship of some kind. Then we've given opportunities to some of the productions to be showcased. Some of them have been part of, for example, of our Naledi showcases, which are linked to the Theatre Awards in Joburg. And in fact, we've got 2 productions that won awards at the Naledi's this year. So The Cloudcatcher is a production that won the best production for children at the Naledi's this year, and Jacques de Silva in Taking Flight won the best performance in theatre for young audiences at the Naledi's this year. So very nice that they're both here. So basically what we do is we try and create a kind of a community, if you like, of practitioners who are making work for young audiences, and we support them as much as we can, because as anybody who's been to Grahamstown as a professional knows, it is hard. It is hard work to bring your piece here. It costs a lot of money. It's very stressful. You're trying to do everything yourself. You're trying to do your marketing. You're trying to get your production together. You're trying to make sure that you understand what the festival wants of you. And you know, so we try and take some of that hassle out of being here. So we've got 8 productions on our platform this year. 2 of them are for teens. There are the sort of majority, 5 are for the kind of 7 to 12-year-old age group, and we've got 1 production for the 2 to 6s. And so basically, you know, we are encouraging audiences to come to those. We are assisting all the productions with their monitoring and evaluation. We are helping them promote it. We're putting out publicity for them. And we're creating a kind of a space where if a parent brings children to see one show and they see, we've got other things on at the platform, there's a lot of cross-marketing happening. You know, so that people essentially support one another. So many of the artists are getting up before their show and saying, hey guys, if you haven't seen other shows on the Assetej platform, you know that there's also this one and that one, and, you know. And in that way, hopefully we encourage an audience that is really excited about theatre. Because in the end, you know, we want people to approach theatre in the same way they'd approach literature. They don't, you know, if you're a parent with a young child, you don't say to yourself, I need to buy fairy tales for my child. They are only going to ever read Cinderella and whatever. Basically, you get so excited that your child is reading that you say, well, what are you interested in? You know, do you want science fiction? Do you want history? Do you want, you know, read the newspaper? You know, there's a sense of within a reading culture of really trying to encourage diversity. Within a theatre culture, often the theatre that is made for children is very limited.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's dealing with only very particular kinds of things. It's as though we have this impression that all children's theatre needs to be, you know, a happy story with a happy ending and with lots of singing and bright colours. And actually, no, children's theatre can be very thought-provoking. It can be very challenging. It can be very engaging in other ways, you know.
Okay.
And that's what we're trying to encourage as a network, that diversity and that variety of approach.
Okay, now in terms of looking ahead in the future, what would you say on a personal level you're still hoping you can achieve with Assetage and children's theatre?
So much. Because, I mean, it feels like we are really at a very important moment in terms of theatre for young audiences in South Africa. Assetage has been in existence for just over 10 years now.
Right.
In our 10th anniversary year, which was last year, 2017, we hosted this enormous international theatre festival and World Congress of Assetage. So essentially, the world of Assetage came to Africa for the first time, and specifically to Cape Town. We had 1,400 delegates from all over the world. We had 63 productions from all over the world and all over the continent. We had more than 70 countries represented. And there was an incredible exchange that happened between artists from different parts of the world and South African artists.
Yeah.
And South African artists were seeing work that was challenging to them, dance theatre for young audiences, immersive theatre, very kind of, some sort of highly technical theatre, you know, using new media, some very kind of, earthy kind of theatre, you know. So like a huge range of kinds of theatre, and people have got very inspired. So right now we have many South African productions that are touring internationally. We've got a South African dance piece which is about to head off to Japan. Koleka Patuma, who has just brought her show Mbozeni to 3 different festivals, one in Edinburgh, 2 in Germany. Magnet Theatre has one of their shows going to Reunion right now. They've just come back from Canada and from the States with 2 other shows. And so it goes. There's so much international exposure for theatre for young audiences from South Africa at the moment. And there are a lot of collaborations which are happening. So because of all of that, we feel that we have an opportunity to really grow the field in a big way. Because up until now it's been quite limited. We actually have only 2 theatre spaces in the entire country that are dedicated to children. If you think about that, think about how what a young population we have in South Africa, and yet we only have 2 spaces that dedicate themselves to children. I mean, it's appalling actually. We have many companies, but very few of them are properly funded. So they're all struggling to survive, you know, and so it's really, really hard for them. If they can access the international network, and that then gives them some sustainability and some motivation to keep the work going, but then also take that learning and then apply it to wherever they are, to be taking work into schools, into creches, into community centres, you know, we can really start to have the kind of level of access that I believe is necessary, where, you know, our dream is for Assetage that every child in South Africa has exposure to theatre on an annual basis.
Wow.
You know, that's our dream. And I think that it's possible. I really do believe it's possible, but I think it's becoming more and more possible.
All right.
So one of the things that we are going to be doing is hosting every 2 years from 2019 an International Theatre for Young Audiences festival based on this huge event we had last year called Cradle of Creativity. And we see that as a little engine for theatre for young audiences. You know, it's going to be a space that kind of makes theatre for young audiences happen, that allows access for the artists to the international kind of framework of Assetage, and which also allows for this kind of filtering and exchange of ideas.
Would that be based here in South Africa?
In South Africa, because Assetage members are in more than 100 countries around the world, and in most of those countries, there is at least one International Theatre for Young Audiences festival. South Africa does not have one.
All right.
So we are starting it. It's called Cradle of Creativity, and the first one will be at the Baxter in Cape Town in August 2019. But one of the exciting things about our festival is it's going to be a rotating festival. So 2021 we're going to be at the Market in Johannesburg, and 2023 we're going to be in the Northwest, and it's going to continue to rotate. So it'll be in different parts of the country every 2 years. and there's a whole development platform alongside that as well.
All right. Now, to wrap up, what would you say is your piece of advice for young directors, performers, anyone in the space who's working with children's theatre and children and wanting to develop children's theatre in the same way that Assettage is, but probably doesn't have the resources, is just starting out? What would you say? How do you go about making the thing that you're feeling and needing and wanting to tackle something that can grow as big as something like Assettage?
Well, firstly, Assettage is not, we are a network.
All right.
You know, so the first thing that I would say to those directors, actors, writers, whatever, is become a member of the network.
Sure.
Because the moment you become a member of the network, you get access to this community of people who are all working in the same way as you.
That's
and who
important,
have your
a
back,
community.
you know, who are wanting to help you with the research, who are wanting to help you with the development, who want to help tour your play if it's, you know, good, you know.
Yeah.
So first of all, become a member. Then secondly, I think one of the really important things that I've learned about theatre for young audiences, and actually it's true of all theatre, but people working for adults sometimes forget, is that an audience is not a kind of a monolithic group of people who all think and feel in the same way.
Sure.
An audience is a set of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working for children, you see that absolutely crystal clear, because you can see that this little one over here is wriggling quite a lot, this little one over here is really engaged, that little one over there is feeling really tetchy and needs to get a bit of sleep or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And so you as the artist have to think about, how do you hold this audience of individuals, this whole kind of sea of different people with different needs? How do you engage with each one? How do you use your awareness as an artist to really bring them in?
Yeah.
So it's a very challenging form of theatre, because you have to, it's not a case of just doing what you've planned to do exactly the way you've done it every time, because you've got to be super aware of how the audience is receiving you.
And respond accordingly.
And respond, exactly. And then the third thing is that you've got to really engage with that audience in the making of your work. So, for example, if you're making work for babies, or if you're making work for 2-year-olds, you cannot just have an idea out there, make the piece, and then take it to 2-year-olds and show it to them and think they're going to enjoy it. Part of your process has to be about researching your audience, because even if you think you know what it's like to be 2 years old, you don't anymore.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a professional theatre maker, there are at least 18 years between when you were 2 and, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, life today for a 2-year-old is different from it was, you know, when you were 2.
Yeah.
So you've got to test things on your audience. So what we do a lot of is kind of taking bits of performances into creches, for example, and using that as a way to engage with children, to see what they respond to. It becomes a kind of a playful thing as well, you know, so it can extend into other kind of learning. And then using that material and what you learn about that material and how audiences respond to it in the making of your piece.
Okay.
So that ultimately your piece is really constructed from a real understanding of your audience. And then, as you are traveling your work, I think one of the most important things that artists, and again, this is true of all artists, not just theatre for young audiences, but particularly for theatre for young audiences, is it is never the end result, if you know what I mean. It is never the end of the process.
Okay.
That every audience teaches you something new. And particularly when you start to tour a lot within South Africa, or when you start to take your work outside of the country, you start to see how you've got to respond to these different contexts. You've got to, you know, and you've got to allow the work to grow and to develop and to be responsive. And you've got to keep yourself absolutely kind of... what's the word I'm looking for? Connected to the quality of what it is that you're delivering.
Yeah.
You can never become complacent. You have to make sure that, because often this is children's very first experience of the theatre, you know.
A lot of pressure for the impression that you leave.
Exactly. You want them to love this experience,
Yeah.
to get something meaningful from this experience so that they want to come back. If you mess it up, you might have literally lost your audience, you know, forever. They will never come to the theatre again. So actually the stakes are really high. You've got to make it as good as it possibly can be.
All right, well, there you have it. Yvette, thank you so much for joining us on the couch, and good luck for the rest of the festival and going forward.
Thank
Asante is
you.
doing brilliant work, and we are so lucky to be able to experience that right here in a small town like Makanda, but a festival as important as the National Arts Festival. So thank you, and keep doing the amazing work that you're doing.
Thanks so much.
Guys, that's it for episode 1. Please check all our material out on Q Online. We are trying to bring you so many different interviews and stories, and from the fun to the serious to the fabulous. We're trying to cover it all. We're keeping you in the loop and making sure that your festival experience is the best that it can be. Catch us for episode 2 and enjoy the festival.